All right, let's dive into an economic puzzle coming out of Taiwan that honestly seems to break all the rules. It's a fascinating one.
So get this. Imagine you're paying down your credit card bill, but at the same time, you're also just handing out cash to your family. Logically, those two things just don't go together. It feels impossible, right? How could a country possibly be doing both at once?
And yet, it's happening. While most big economies are watching their debt explode, Taiwan's is on track to fall to just about 26% of its entire economy. I mean, that is a huge drop from its peak of almost 40% just over a decade ago. So, how is this even possible?
Well, the first part of the answer is actually some pretty simple math. It all boils down to a concept I like to call the exploding denominator.
Okay, so you really have to understand this one formula to get the whole story. We measure a country's financial health with its debt to GDP ratio. It's not just about how much money the government owes, it's about how much it owes compared to the size of its entire economy.
And this is where it gets so interesting in Taiwan's case. You have these two parts of the fraction going in totally opposite directions. The top number, the debt, is kept on a super tight leash by law. But the bottom number, the economy, the GDP, well, that has been growing like crazy.
And I mean, the scale of this growth is just staggering. We're talking about the economy jumping from 17.5 trillion to over 24 trillion new Taiwan dollars in less than 10 years. It's simple math, really. When the bottom number of a fraction gets that much bigger, that much faster than the top number, the whole ratio has to shrink.
So what's lighting the fire under this economic engine? It's the world's incredible, insatiable appetite for high-tech stuff. Taiwan has masterfully placed itself right at the heart of the global supply chain for things like advanced chips and AI servers, and that has created this massive wave of real, tangible productivity.
Okay, so that takes care of the shrinking debt ratio. We get it, but that's only half the puzzle. What about the cash giveaways? Where's that money coming from? Well, that brings us to the second part of the secret sauce, the surplus funding loop.
Right, the economy's on fire, we've established that, but how does that wealth actually get into the government's hands and then back out to the people? It's not magic.
It works through this really smart four-step cycle. First, every year, the government is deliberately cautious. They budget for pretty modest economic growth. Then, step two, the tech sector just blows those estimates out of the water, making way more profit and, crucially, paying way more in taxes than anyone planned for. This creates a giant pile of extra cash, a tax surplus. And finally, that unexpected windfall gets split. Some of it goes to paying down the national debt, shrinking that numerator even more, and the rest is used to fund these cash payments to the public.
And let's be super clear about this, because it's the most important part. This is not the government just turning on the money printers. This isn't creating inflation out of thin air. It's a system designed to share the very real, very tangible profits from a massive boom in productivity.
You know, when you zoom out and look at the rest of the world, you start to realize just how weird this whole situation is. It really makes Taiwan a unique global case study.
So you're probably asking, is this normal? Do other countries do this? The short answer, nope, not like this. Let me show you why.
This chart just lays it all out. Look at the US and Europe. Their pandemic cash handouts came from taking on new debt and, well, printing money, which gave us high inflation. Then you have places rich in natural resources, like Norway, that use oil money, but that's a finite resource. And tiny city-states like Singapore use returns from massive investment funds. Taiwan's model, it's funded by real-time industrial profits, and the so-called cost is actually a benefit, a lower national debt. It's wild.
So when you put it all together, you see why Taiwan is such an outlier. This is a pretty big country, 23 million people, not some tiny city-state. It has basically no natural resources to sell. All its wealth comes from making things, from advanced manufacturing. And somehow, it's sharing that wealth without printing money and while getting its finances in better shape. It's a truly rare combination.
So let's tie all this together. What is the fundamental lesson from this incredible economic story? It all comes down to what I'd call the productivity equation. You know, there's this ancient saying that I think just fits perfectly here. It basically says that some things in nature just are. They're not created by a brilliant leader or destroyed by a bad one. And that's kind of what's happening here. This isn't about some political genius pulling levers. At the end of the day, this isn't a magic trick. It's just an equation playing out in the real world. You have this incredible, highly advanced industrial base that's making things the entire planet is desperate to buy.
the shrinking debt, and the cash surpluses, they're just the natural, logical result of that powerful economic formula.
And that leaves us with one final and maybe even bigger question. The system is clearly amazing at creating this wealth. But now that it's been generated, what's the best, the fairest, the smartest way to distribute it? That's the real challenge that comes next.